Welcome to Mind, Body, Health, and Politics. I'm your host, Dr. Richard Lewis Miller. The mission of Mind, Body, Health, and Politics is to enhance your physical and emotional well-being and encourage community. I say encourage community because I believe that human beings are tribal animals and that we're meant to live tribally. And when we live tribally, where we know everybody, we are really the healthiest. We sustain one another, we collaborate, and we do all type of good things together. So that's why I say encourage community. I'd like you to think about community, what it means to you, what it means about connection. We particularly need community at this particular time because there's a pandemic of isolation and alienation that's going on around the world. And the way to combat that is with connection with each other. Today, we're connected with Tania De Jong, who comes to us from Australia, where she's doing some really exciting things. And that's why I sleuthed her out and brought her to us here in the States. Welcome to Mind, Body, Health, and Politics, Tania.
Thank you, Richard, and it's such a pleasure joining you on this and your beautiful program and all the work you're doing in the world.
So, Tania, take it from the top. Share with us some of the wonderful things and exciting things and helpful things that you're doing and that are going on right now in Australia.
Sure thing, Richard. So it's very interesting that you were talking about that pandemic of loneliness and social isolation and mental illness. And that is something, of course, that we're experiencing in Australia as well, where 1 in 4 people are suffering with a mental illness right now, and 1 in 6 people are on antidepressants, and children as young as 4 are being medicated with psychiatric medications. So we're seeing this terrible increase in suffering in families, in communities, in workplaces. And there really has not been any innovation in treatments for over 50 years. And it's only really since this rapidly emerging field of psychedelic assisted therapies is having this renaissance that we're seeing real hope for so many people who are suffering immensely. And some have been suffering for decades. They've tried multiple different treatments, antidepressants, antipsychotics, psychotherapy, a whole range of other treatments, but they're not able to get better. And so we have this wonderful opportunity with these psychedelic assisted therapies to heal so many more people. And as you know, and as you speak about often in your program, the research around psychedelic assisted therapies is extraordinary, with up to 60 to 80% of patients experiencing remission after just 2 to 3 treatments with the medicine and then a short course of psychotherapy. So many more people can be getting well. And we know from the research that in the case of depression, only about 15% of patients are experiencing remission through antidepressants or other medications and psychotherapy. So that's versus 60 to 80% with psychedelic assisted therapies. Or in the case of post-traumatic stress disorder, as few as 5% of patients are experiencing remission from existing treatments, whereas in the case of these therapies, we're seeing remission rates again of 60 to 80%. So, of course,
Wow.
these therapies don't suit every single patient, and we know that they're not a panacea for everyone, and we're not suggesting that. But they have a chance to really heal many, many more people. And we receive messages from people in the community every day, devastating messages on email, on text messages, phone calls from people who've tried everything and they're not able to get better. And they just want to have the chance to live a part of their lives with joy and with light and with hope, and to experience as much of the rest of their lives as they can with the joy that every single human being deserves, to have access to safe and effective medicines. And it's our birthright to have the experience of being on this planet and experience the magical beauty that is here, rather than the immense suffering that so many people experience every single day of their lives. So,
May I interrupt with a few
yeah, of
questions?
course. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, the results that you're bringing to us are dramatic. There's no
Yes.
question about that. You're talking about the difference between 5% with existing therapy and 60 to
Mm.
80% with these novel treatments. That's very dramatic change. Now, here in this country, we relate to the work with the psychedelics for the most part as PAT, psychotherapy assisted psychedelics, right? Psychedelic
Well, we
assisted
call it
psychotherapy,
psychedelic assisted therapies, PAT, but
psychedelic
doesn't
assisted
matter which.
therapy
Yes,
or psychotherapy,
yes,
right?
yes.
And are you finding in a significant number of cases that the experience with the psychedelic material alone is having such a positive effect? Or is it, as here, the combination of the medicine and the therapy?
Absolutely. I mean, the medicine and the therapy, in most cases, like well, certainly in the cases that are being run through the clinics that we've set up in Australia and all the clinics in Australia, is that it's the medicine plus the therapy. And this is what makes these treatments so unique. It
Yeah.
is the fact that the medicine acts as a tool to really accelerate healing and accelerate really recalibrating some of the trauma and the suffering that has occurred in a person's life so that they can start to make new pathways in their lives, and they can start to build better habits and ways of being in the world, and they can experience the real beauty that is here because the psychedelics give that sense of oneness and connection with self and others and the planet, and that feeling of being part of everything and everything being part of you. I remember when I first took the medicine, which was nearly 10 years ago, and it was such a profound experience that I've never forgotten it. It was a fundamental experience in my life. And a year later, I went back and did the medicine again, but it took me that long, one whole year, to integrate what had really happened in that experience. And it was really only after the second experience that my husband and I started going, wow, well, if this is having this impact on us, and yes, we've experienced trauma in our lives, everyone has. We all have trauma. If we don't have it in our own lives, it's coming through our ancestral lines and the collective. But to actually have this experience, to give you healing, to give you greater sense of connection to different states of consciousness, to greater creativity, and all of these sorts of things, is also a great gift for people who are not suffering with a serious mental illness diagnosis. But, I'm the daughter and granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. And so there's an enormous amount of trauma in my family line, and many of my relatives were murdered in the Holocaust. And I've had to come to terms with that. And I've come to terms with that through the medicines largely. It's really helped me to understand that and embrace that fact, even though it's an awful thing that has happened, instead of resisting it. And that's what I was doing for many years. Anytime that any content would come up about the Holocaust, I couldn't be in the room. I still find it very hard to digest what has happened, but at least I can face into what has happened, and that makes it makes it a more healing process. And really, that's what led my husband and I to then attend many of the conferences and events around the world, to start meeting many of the leading researchers and scientists and clinicians in the field all around the world. And that's what then inspired us to set up Mind Medicine Australia in 2019. And that was when we started to apply for the rescheduling of psilocybin and MDMA from being prohibited medicines to controlled medicines. And that took us a number of years. And we kept being knocked back by the Therapeutic Goods Administration, which is the equivalent of your FDA.
Yes.
And then finally, on February the 3rd, 2023, after 13,000 Australians wrote submissions to the government, and there was an enormous movement for change,
Yes.
that we were able to have these medicines rescheduled in Australia, which was the first country in the world to reschedule psilocybin and MDMA for the treatment of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder.
So
And so since,
what is their status right now in
yeah,
Australia of MDMA and psilocybin? Tell us.
yes. So since that time, there's been a number of psychiatrists who've applied to become authorized prescribers. So they need to be authorized prescribers who've done training. So we lead the leading training program probably in the world. Some of our faculty, like David Nutt and others, say it is. And we have a world leading faculty including Bessel van der Kolk, Gabor Mate, David Nutt, Rick Doblin, all the people that you know, Richard, Bill Richards, and others. And they teach medical professionals how to work with these altered states of consciousness, how to hold the space for patients, and how to really work with patients in clinical environments with these medicines. So we've graduated over 600 clinicians and therapists through our certificate in psychedelic assisted therapies. And over 100 of those are psychiatrists. And those psychiatrists can become authorized prescribers. So they apply to a human research ethics committee for a particular protocol in their clinic to treat patients with psychedelic assisted therapies. And now there's been over 180 patients treated in Australia so far. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's in a clinical setting, it's legal. And these patients are starting to have extraordinary healing outcomes.
And who pays the bills for the therapy?
Yeah, so it varies between patients themselves. Mind Medicine Australia, so we're a charity, we have a patient support fund and we welcome philanthropists to donate to that fund. Also, we have a leading health insurance
So
company
has it
called
become
Medibank.
very expensive the way it is here in the United
Yeah.
States?
I mean, a course costs between $8 to about $25,000-$30,000 Australian. But we
I don't
also
know
have,
how much that is in
well,
American.
that's between about say 4 and maybe 15, 16, 17,000 US dollars but that's for a 3-4 month treatment program. It's not,
I understand. That is
yeah,
one of the criticisms that we're facing here in the United States, which is that of course, we don't have very many places where it's legal. As you know, it's only a couple of states here where it's legal: Oakland, California, Denver, Oregon. But one of the complaints from the public is that the expense it's very high, and so right now it's only available to a small percentage of the population.
yeah.
That's something we've got to do something about in the future to make it more
Oh, absolutely.
likely.
Well, I mean, just to let you know some of the other payment gateways in Australia that we've helped to set up. So the National Disability Insurance Scheme is also paying for some treatments. So is the Department of Veterans Affairs. So they're paying for some veterans to have these treatments. And we have a health insurer who's also paying for some of their members to have treatment. So between all these things, we are seeing a lot of people, including first responders and veterans and other people who really are very disadvantaged getting access to these treatments. And we're making sure of that because we're a charity. The other thing that we've done too is we've partnered with a Canadian pharmaceutical company called Optimi Health. And so they supply very high grade GMP quality MDMA and psilocybin to us in Australia. And we're able to provide that at the most reasonable rates possible so that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that these treatments are accessible and affordable to people no matter their financial circumstances or where they're based in Australia.
Tanya, what's a typical protocol? Do you administer the MDMA and the psilocybin the same day? Are they
Oh, no,
using
no.
con-
So a patient either has, so depending on their diagnosis, so if they have a diagnosis of treatment resistant depression, so they've tried at least two other types of treatments, like could be antidepressants and other treatments. And if they have failed, then they're qualified potentially, if their psychiatrist agrees, for them to have the treatment. And they get psilocybin. So people with treatment resistant depression get psilocybin between 1 to 3 doses. And in the case of post traumatic stress disorder, they get MDMA, again, 1 to 3 doses. In fact, some people have had more than 3 doses of MDMA in Australia because they needed to. And it's spaced out, obviously, over a period of time. And every medicine session is followed by integration sessions. And Richard, you know just how important it is for people to integrate these out of body altered state experiences so that what material comes up in those medicinal sessions can then be implemented in their lives so that they can start to really heal and lead more positive, productive, creative lives from the treatment and the integration in particular.
What's a typical dose of MDMA that is administered?
I think there's an initial dose of around 80 micrograms, and then that can be topped up in 40 microgram increments. So I
No,
think
and the
most people,
MDMA?
the MDMA, yeah, around, so it gets to
Yeah,
about 120,
no, it's
130.
that's gonna be milligrams, not micrograms, milligrams.
Oh, is it? Okay, milligrams. Sorry, I'm bad with my
All right.
metrics.
Yeah,
And then the psilocybin is usually around about 2.5,
yeah.
um,
Light
2.5
dose.
grams.
Those are nice light
Yeah,
doses, yes.
yeah. They're not too heavy. I mean, they're designed so that people can really, I mean, certainly the psilocybin dose, no, these doses can take people to a fair range of healing and altered states, no question.
Most of the doses used experimentally here with MDMA in the United States started at about 130 milligrams, but then it was
Yeah,
found over time that many people get just as much out of 100 milligrams, and
yeah,
many others get just as much out of 75 milligrams. But it varies a
correct.
lot with the individual person.
Yes, yeah. No, it's
2.5, yeah, 2.5 grams of psilocybin is a very light dose. That's a very nice way to start,
mm,
gentle. I'm sure that people find it that way. Here in the States, Tanya, a lot of therapists are administering the MDMA and the psilocybin at the same time.
mm.
You know about that?
Yeah. No, I do know about that, and I've certainly tried that myself where I've had MDMA an hour before having psilocybin. Or,
Yes.
they call that the hippie flip in
Oh, they
some
call it a
world.
hippie flip?
Well, yeah, not in medical terms, but I think in probably party terms
Yeah,
they
I
might do that.
understand. Sure.
But, no, here at the moment it's, one medicine at the moment for one and one for the other, and that's how it's working through the regulatory
Yeah.
bodies. But I do acknowledge that for some clients that particular protocol is a very effective protocol, but that hasn't come in yet, and I'm not sure that it will, because I think that the authorities won't like mixing the medicines. But we'll see. But at the end of the day, we really would love to see more not recreational, more not recreational, licensed retreats like what you have in Colorado and stuff. And that hasn't happened yet in Australia. We have the situation where people are being treated in clinics. They can't take the medicine home, but there's no kind of licensed legal retreats in Australia at the moment.
Well, the truth of the matter is that probably over 95% of the psychedelic assisted therapy that goes on in the United States is underground. It's totally
Yeah.
underground
Well,
because it's
totally. And
going
here
on.
too. No, I mean that's just the case of it. And look, people are the thing is, and this is why I think the rescheduling happened is, we have such a serious mental health epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it,
Yes,
that the greatest risk is to do nothing. But unfortunately, what happens is a lot of people with mental illness do go and seek underground support, and there's wonderful underground facilitators, as we know. But then
yes,
there's also people out there who are not
yes,
necessarily haven't necessarily done the work and don't really necessarily know exactly what they're doing, and that can be very dangerous, especially for someone who is suffering with, a serious mental illness. So I really encourage people to see, licensed therapists and guides and people who really know what they're doing. Do your due diligence. I always say that to anyone,
yeah.
like it's
Well, you
really
see,
check it out.
that's one of the adverse effects on all of our people of the government's misguided laws, misguided representations, because
That's
by
right.
keeping these substances illegal, they're
Mhm.
forcing people to go underground. And when you go underground, as you say, you don't know who you're getting as a
Yeah,
therapist, number one. But number two, of equal importance, you don't necessarily know that the material that you're ingesting is
absolutely.
clean because it's
Totally.
underground material. And that's very sad for the public, isn't it? And that's
Yes.
something that,
No, that really breaks my heart because, frankly, I believe, that these, as, many people do, these medicines have been with humanity since the beginning of human civilizations. We've seen that through all the archaeology and everything, and they've been with us for ceremony, for healing, for raising of consciousness. in Indigenous cultures, forever, and they still are in those cultures, of course. And it's very, very sad that people have to go and break the law to either experience greater states of consciousness and expand their consciousness, or to heal. People should be able to access these treatments, these wonderful transformational therapies, legally, without having to fight as hard as they have to fight to do it, or go underground and take the risks that we're talking about.
I don't know anything at all about psychedelic use amongst the Aboriginal people. Do you know anything about that? About their
Yeah, I
use?
mean, so in terms of the Indigenous people of Australia, it's hard to get knowledge, but we do know that the acacia has psychoactive properties in it, and we do know that the Indigenous people have used acacia bush and for psychoactive healing and ceremony and so on. And if you look at our Indigenous art, you can see these amazing dot paintings, and they would appear to have some kind of, perhaps inspired by psychedelic experience, form to them. I've always thought that. And who knows exactly, but we do know that there has been a lot of use of psychoactive plants in Indigenous cultures forever, and that's incredibly important to those cultures, and we need to share that opportunity without taking away from these Indigenous cultures their extraordinary ancient wisdom, and they have so much to teach us, and we really have stopped listening to a lot of the ancient wisdom in the world. As you know, Richard, I'm a singer, and I've done a TED talk called How Singing Together Changes Your Brain, and there's so much ancient wisdom around singing and dancing together and healing together and doing all these things together as part of a tribe, as part of a culture. And we've lost a lot of that in most of that in Western society, which is terribly unfortunate, because that's what we're aching for. Our souls are aching to reconnect to the land, to ourselves, to our healing, to others, to be in tribe again, instead of sort of cut off from one another through social media and artificial intelligence, which have their purpose, but are also tools that are cutting us off more than they're connecting us, in my opinion.
Singing together is an antidote to isolation and alienation, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, there's a lot of research that shows that when we sing together, we release endorphins through the right temporal lobe of our brain, like oxytocin and other very good good hormones, and we become smarter, healthier, happier, more creative. People heal from strokes, Alzheimer's, all sorts of other cognitive impairments through singing together, particularly when we sing together and we start to breathe together, and it's like a super wonder drug. And it also stimulates the right side of our brain, which is the part of our brain that is our human battery charger. It's the part of us that connects us to ourselves and everyone else. So singing is also an extremely important healing tool. And I've spoken about that for a very, very long time. And singing and psychedelics, well, the two of them together have a lot of things in common, in fact.
If you'll send me a link to your singing when we send out the newsletter announcing this interview, we'll put the link to your singing on the newsletter. And people
Yeah,
will
I'd
be
love
able to
that.
get to it and hear you singing. I look forward to it. I'd love to hear you
No,
sing.
I'll send you some of my gifts of some of my albums, and also my TED Talk link as well, and some other links. But yeah, there's some wonderful links that we can share with listeners and your following, and we'd love to do that. But I think the most important thing, that we're seeing in Australia is a real take up, a real acceptance now within many clinical circles, within the general public, that this is a legitimate and very important modality of healing and treatment for people. And the demand, as you can imagine, is through the roof. We have a clinic that we've set up in Melbourne called the Mind Medicine Australia Clinic. And we have something like over 1,500 patients on the wait list. It's like an enormous amount of people
Wow. Are
wanting
you in
these treatments.
Melbourne?
I'm not in Melbourne right now. I'm actually near Byron Bay, but our office is in Melbourne, and we have clinics in Melbourne. And there's clinics being set up by us and other clinicians all over Australia.
Yeah.
And we have, of the 600 people that we've trained, well over 200 of them are now working in this field. So there's careers emerging in psychedelic assisted therapies, and people are able to be employed in this space, which is very exciting for these therapists who've been longing to do something like this for a really long time, and to have these tools in their toolbox now is an incredible opportunity for them to really reinforce the fact that they can heal and get people well, because a lot of the clinicians we talk to had been feeling very disillusioned, particularly the
Yeah,
psychiatrists, because the
yeah,
tools that they have are blunted tools.
yeah. They're not working. They're not working. How
Right.
far is Byron Bay from Melbourne?
Well, it's about a couple of hours flight, I guess, or, a
Oh, it's
fairly
a
long drive.
flight. Well, do you live
Yeah,
in
but
Byron Bay or do you live in Melbourne or both?
no, I live in Melbourne, but I do spend a lot of time up here, and this is
I
really,
see.
yeah, Byron Bay, or the surrounding part of the hinterland of Byron Bay, is like a really hot spot for deep energy from the land, and also plants and medicines. It's a
Uh,
real plant medicine center in Australia. Yes, it's
so I'm
quite a
going to change.
beautiful
I'm going
part of
to
the
change the
world.
topic and talk to you about an idea of mine and see what you think about it.
Sure,
Because I have this a clinical psychologist. I have
I
deep
know.
concern, you know that, about the isolation and alienation. And I had something happen to me this week where I was watching a video of this doctor from Stanford, and he was talking about the health benefits of exercise, which of course I've been pushing for 50 years. And I'm so glad that others are joining in now and recognizing
Mm,
the health benefits of exercise. And so I decided to go to his site and give him a little encouragement, right? So I went to his site and I wrote bravo and I clicked on, and then I noticed there was a whole list of people. You could see what other people have commented to him about. One after the other, there were comments such as, why would I want to exercise so I can live longer? Why would I want to live longer? The world is shit. And
mm,
I heard that over and over. Got people saying, you're advocating I do this so I can live to be 75 or 80 or 85. I don't want to live that long. Look what's going on in the world.
mm.
So many, it just saddened me. It was so
No, it's
sad.
very sad. It is very sad.
So sad. So I got this idea, and this is what I want to try out on you. And if you like it, you can try it out in Australia. Suppose suppose we started a project called the human the human contact project,
Mhm.
and we asked everybody to make one phone call a week to someone that they would not ordinarily call, someone they know, but they're not particular friends with, but they know them well enough to have their phone
Mm,
number or to be able to call. And they just call them on the phone, one person every week, and say, hi, I'm just calling to say hello and see how you're doing. And that's it. Nothing more. If something comes of it, a little conversation, fine, but you keep it brief, no agenda, no politics, no nothing. It's just human contact. And I'm wondering what would happen if we got millions, tens of millions, or hundreds of millions of people all calling once a
mhm.
week to make contact with another human being. What do you think of
Yeah.
that idea? How does that grab you?
No, I love it, and I mean, that's something that I myself do. I love, I miss the days of having phone calls, and it seems like a world where people are just
Everybody's
texting, and
texting instead of
yeah,
calling, right?
yeah, and just hearing another human voice, and this is really important. I mean, our
Yes.
voice is a coherence tool, it's a resonance tool, and when we use our voice and speak to someone like we're doing now, we're resonating together. We're being coherent as we can be together,
Right.
and we're sharing energy together, and it feels real. When we actually are texting people, it's very two-dimensional and it's very distant. We're living in a world, and I've been saying this for a really long time, where we talk more to boxes and screens than we do to one another. And it's not good for human beings. We're social animals. We're not social media. We're social animals. And we
Yes.
need to touch and feel and hear. We need to
Yes.
be seen, heard, and held. And that is something that is deeply missing. And we need to reconnect, like you say. And I love that idea. I think it's a really important idea. And maybe you can get this Harvard guy on board with you, and he can do it with you as well. I'm enjoying this conversation. So thank you very much for having me on, and I will send you a whole lot of links to share. And when you want to speak again, like we could speak again. But Australia it's doing well in this space. It's certainly doing well. We're leading in this space, but it's also difficult because there is a lot of bureaucracy around all of this. So we're trying to make things more streamlined so that more people can get access to the treatment. So in whatever ways any of your listeners can support or help us, join us at mindmedicineaustralia.org.au. That's our website. And I'll share a whole lot of links with you, Richard. See how
And
we can.
we'll make sure to put all that in the newsletter announcement.
Yeah, that'd
Thank
be
you so
wonderful.
much. Thank you so much for being with us today on Mind, Body, Health, and Politics, Tania.
Keep up the good work, Richard.
And thank you all for listening to this broadcast of Mind, Body, Health, and Politics. As you know, we broadcast every week. You can go to the website, mindbodyhealthpolitics.org, and all the archives for the last 20 years are open source. That means no charge, no box tops, no money. You can just tune in and listen to some of the greatest people on the planet, as we did today with Tania De Jong from Australia. So until next time, this is Dr. Richard Lewis Miller reminding you that good health is worth fighting for, and it's essential for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.